The last time I swung my leg around the S1000RR, I ended up living with it for 3 weeks and riding it in anger over 2,300 kilometers. Long enough saddle time to convince me it was the best superbike for the road. And for 2023, BMW have decided to turn this into an all-out assault weapon. So the engine packs more fire in its belly. This is a high compression engine. The compression ratio has gone up, which has helped BMW extract 210 horsepower from it. That's 3 horsepower more compared to the previous model. And it's also running a bigger rear sprocket. And to ensure that you can put all this firepower down without launching you in outer space, this also has a 17mm longer wheelbase and has also grown some wings, which we have first seen on the M1000RR. In fact, even the flexi frame is from the M1000RR, and so is the updated suite of electronic aids. So on top of the 6-axis IMU which this already came with, this one also gets a steering angle sensor which feeds information to the ABS and traction control so that you can brake slide into a corner and drift out of it like your favorite MotoGP star. Or for that matter, you can also do a Toprak style rolling stoppie with the help of the electronics, which will actually keep the rear wheel up in the air by modulating the brake pressure and prevent you from toppling over. And we thought Germans did not have a sense of humor. But as good as this all sounds, the one thing, at least in my books, which turns this into a pakka game changer is this. The biggest flaw on the previous gen S1000RR was the fact that even on its top spec variant, it did not give you the option of fixed damping, which meant it was always dynamic. It would change as per the road surface, which is great when you're riding on the road, but really bad when you're riding on the track. So even if you would go into the settings and put the front damping as 8, it would still keep oscillating between 8 to the hardest setting, which meant that when you're entering the corners, the front end never feels settled, robbing you of confidence. It felt like the bike had a mind of its own and you were constantly fighting it to keep the bike on your intended line. But I'm happy to report that no longer seems to be the case with the new S1000RR. I'm of course really looking forward to ride this on the track to verify this point for sure. But at least now when you go into the Race Pro mode and dial in the suspension settings that you want, it behaves like a motorcycle with traditional non-electronic suspension which has been properly dialed in. The front end does exactly what you expect of it. You have really good feedback coming from the new Dunlop rubber, and it doesn't have a tendency to run wide as on the previous gen bike. And what does that mean? You can now dive bomb into the corner, making the most of the braking stability which you have thanks to the wings which digs the front end into the ground. You can make the most of the agility, the insane agility which these carbon fiber wheels bring to a table on this M Sport variant. I mean, I'm sure on paper, because of the longer wheelbase and the wings, this might not be as agile, as compared to the previous gen bike, but in reality this is still lightning quick during quick change of direction. And that also has a lot to do with the fact that this one only weighs in at 193.5 kgs in this top spec M Sport trim. And as you exit onto the straights, that's where you can experience the full fury of this new engine. It spools up so much quicker because of the new bigger rear sprocket. And man, I love the bi-directional quick shifter. Easily among the best in business. Reminds me of that line from Matrix Reloaded. It's like wiping your ass with silk. It's so smooth, it's so precise. But here's the crazy part. As impressive as all of these things are, what makes it even crazier is the fact that all of these changes, which have made the S1000R a proper track tool now, haven't come at the cost of what made the old S1000RR the best road bike that money can buy. So the same fire-breathing engine is also ridiculously tractable thanks to BMW's shift cam technology. I'm talking 6th gear. Yeah, you can ride this pretty much everywhere in the 6th gear. You can approach and slow down for a speed breaker, go over it, pull the clutch in, and as soon as you let go, this will pull cleanly in the 6th gear from 1800 RPM. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you have to experience it to believe it. What does that mean? On the highway, all you need is a 6th gear. Just slot in 6 and just keep riding, and in turn get a fuel economy of 18 to 20 kilometers per liter. And it is this ability of this motorcycle to be able to ride in such higher gears that also helps you bypass any vibrations that you might feel in the lower gears. Because even at 150 kilometers an hour, this engine is still in its peachy sweet spot. And you can genuinely think about long distances on this bike because just like the previous gen, the ergonomics on this are as good as they come on a Superbike. Plus, this one gets the M Sport rear sets, which means you can also lower them for even more comfort. You also have this taller windscreen now, which comes really handy to fend off the wind blast. And then on the road is also where the dynamic damping really comes into its own, providing you really good, nice plush quality, especially when you're riding in a softer mode, like a rain mode, which has the softest damping. That's pretty crazy considering that this is pretty much a proper track tool. And then you have the other creature comforts like cruise control, you have heated grips, you have tire pressure monitoring system to make your time on the S1000RR even more comfortable. But as a road bike, it is still not perfect. So first up, because the engine is now more high-strung, it does heat up a lot more. Now in BMW's defense, they've done a good job of diverting the heat away from you. The problem is the heat transfers onto the chassis and the tank, and that's where you feel it on your legs. Next, when you're riding it in the city, you have to be a little more careful because of the wings, because now the front end is that much wider compared to the older bike. So yeah, when you're slicing through traffic, caution is key. The same way when you're riding it on the highway, on anything but a perfect road, you have to exercise extreme caution because a single encounter with a pothole at high speed would see these beautiful carbon fiber rims crack. Next, I would swap the hard M seat for the stock seat on the S1000RR because these are quite hard. They are great for the track, but for the road, the stock seat on the S1000RR is easily the comfiest as they come on a Superbike. Then the other thing that you need to watch out for is the 120mm ground clearance, which is not really the best for our infrastructure. So when you're going over speed bumps or potholes, you have to be that much more careful. And as is the case with most Superbikes, the turning radius on this is annoyingly long. And I would have preferred the clutch to be a little bit softer. But in all honesty, the new S1000RR is undoubtedly the best S1000RR that BMW's ever made. Because the step that they have made in terms of electronics, on the chassis front and on the engine, make it one of the easiest motorcycles to ride. And I cannot believe that I'm using the word easy for a 210 horsepower nuke from Bavaria. And then when you factor in the price, so this top spec M Sport variant with the carbon fiber rims at 24.9 lakhs is still 8 lakhs cheaper than the Ducati V4S. I mean, that just goes on to prove that the new S1000RR is going to take some beating to be dethroned as the best all-round superbike that you can buy today.